If you are really committed to providing quality care to your clients, then you need to get to know them well. And that's not something that can be done in a quick 30-minute assessment or intake visit. Want to know how you can level up your assessment processes? Then stick around to learn more. Hi, I'm Carrie from Culturally Directed Care Solutions, where we give you the knowledge and tools to provide quality care with confidence. Years ago, when I was managing a service in Alice Springs, one of my roles was to carry out regular assessments and reviews on clients. It was really a highlight of my job, getting out and meeting these people, many of whom had lived in the area for years and shared their stories with me as we enjoyed a cup of tea. This is where I learned that this type of interaction gave me a far deeper understanding of the person and was a useful technique when planning care and services. And I wanted to share how you can use this in your own practice, especially if you're a care manager or a coordinator, or even if you're a care worker and you're feeding that information back to the person's case manager. Now, the assessment or intake process where you're onboarding or starting a new client is a great opportunity for you to find out how you can best work with a person and how you can help them solve any specific problems that they're facing that are related to the aging process. Whilst you may know a little bit about the person from the My Aged Care referral, you often don't have the full picture. And from some of the stories I've heard from consumers, it appears that many providers are not making much of an effort to really understand the person and their needs. We want to change that. So what does your intake or assessment process look like? Or for that matter, your reassessment processes? When you sit down to talk to clients, do you take the time to get to know them really well? Build the rapport and trust with them? Do you try to find out their goals and aspirations? You know, what's important to them? Often these are not things that you can just ask outright. Most people are hesitant about talking about their goals and needs with a stranger. Sometimes they can be unsure about what they can ask for and even what they really want. And it takes, a bit of exploration and observation on your part to uncover what's important to them and what they really need. And this is where what I call conversational assessment comes into play. Of course, when conducting an assessment, there will be a number of questions that can be asked of the person, outright, such as, when you're confirming their name and other statistical information. But I think that the more you get to know the background of the person and their current situation, the more information you have to form a successful support plan and ultimately a great outcome for that person. One of the best ways I've found to really get to know a person and to complete a more holistic assessment is over a cup of tea in their own home. Or in a remote context, it's sitting around the campfire while out on a bush tucker trip. So how does this conversational assessment work? Well, it's not simply asking questions, but using all of your senses to pick up on cues. Think of yourself as the curator of information and you're uncovering the person's life, their background story. I think if we want to understand what supports a person has in place, instead of asking the standard questions of do you have family nearby or what family support do you have, which can be a little bit distressing for the person if there's been some sort of family breakdown or if there are supports sometimes in place but they don't even recognise them. You might be able to take your cues from family photos hanging on the wall. So, a simple comment about one of the photos like, oh, that's a lovely photo, when was it taken? And that often opens that door to further conversation and revelations about family that maybe live nearby or visit often or that are living away in another state or country. Follow-up questions then flow quite naturally from these disclosures. Now that works really well in an urban setting. In a remote setting, we might often need to take the cues from those who are sitting with the person at the time of the assessment. For example, whenever we had a new client, I had to assess them, We might see someone sitting next to them and they say, oh, this is my daughter or granddaughter. And then it's easy to follow up with, oh, great, do you live here as well? Or, you know, who else is here that's supporting you? And, you know, you find out a little bit more about that person. And it's not just what someone says during an assessment, it's also what you see, what you observe. I think the importance of observation was clearly demonstrated over the 2020, 2021 period when so many of those assessments had to be conducted over the phone or through a video link up. And then when the care workers went out to provide the service, they identified even more issues. For example, if they asked a client about mobility, they might say, oh no, I don't have any difficulty moving around or with my mobility. But when you're on site, you can actually see that someone has difficulty getting out of a chair, but they don't see that as difficulty with their mobility because they can still get around. The same thing with personal hygiene, because that's something that's fairly touchy for some people, but it can be identified through observation. Perhaps the person has like cuts on their face from shaving, or their hair is uncombed, or their makeup's messy, and you might also notice some body odours like the smell of urine. These can all be indicators that there's some sort of personal care services or supports that might be needed, but check with them, don't just jump to conclusions. Getting a person to admit to any issues can be a little bit more difficult, and it does take some tact and the development of that trusting relationship before some people are willing to accept help. But at least you've noticed it and you've discussed it with them. When it comes to communication, hearing issues are usually pretty easy to identify. I mean, if you have to raise your voice, or the person wants you to sit on a certain side, or they keep asking you to repeat things, then you're pretty sure that there's some sort of hearing issues. A lot of people self-identify this. It's also important for you to be aware of any diagnosed health conditions, you know, and more importantly, the impact they have on the person. So asking a person to describe the impact that health condition has on their daily life is really important for you to understand the person's needs better. For example, if they've got arthritis, it might be that they have difficulty getting up in the morning. So you want to schedule their activities or their services to later in the day, or maybe there's some aids and equipment that they need. When it comes to allergies or intolerances, most people are pretty quick off the mark to let you know about them, especially if they are looking for delivered meals. But you might have some people who they don't want to be a bother and they won't tell you, or they'll forget to mention it. You can lead with a statement about many of our clients have special dietary requests because they have allergies or preferences. Is there anything that you can't eat or you prefer not to? By using that sort of approach, it makes it a little bit easier for the person to raise their own issues because they can see that others have done so, and obviously you don't have any issues about that. You're approachable about it. Other little things I've discovered with this approach are safety issues. I mean, having a chat over a cuppa might have brought to my attention that the client made the tea using their old Bakelite kettle, complete with frayed cord. Now that sort of thing then raises my alert system, and I want to know what other safety hazards do I need to be aware of. Or perhaps I noticed that their hands shook a lot when they were pouring out the water, so could we discuss some safer options for them? And what about that pile of laundry over in the corner that I've just seen? Does that indicate that the person needs some help with their laundry or ironing? So these are things just to keep your eyes out for. And then there are the activities that the person might be interested in. People can have difficulty expressing what they like to do. I mean, they might be really social and they want to join in with activities at your centre, but they might also have existing activities that they want to continue with or re-engage with. This is where observing the home can be beneficial because you can see what they value. I mean, perhaps you look around and you can see a whole lot of homemade quilts lying around the home. Comments about these might identify that the person loved attending a sewing group where they were created, but they can't get there now. And this would be a trigger for me to ask a few more questions and investigate whether we could perhaps help that person get to their sewing group. After all, services are not just about showers and domestic assistance, but supporting the person's mental and social well-being as well. So next time, instead of just following the script and moving from one question to the next on your assessment or intake form, take the time to really engage with the person. If you pick up on these cues, you'll develop a much more robust assessment that will inform a solid care plan. Not only will you more effectively meet the person's needs, you're also easily able to demonstrate your service's commitment to meeting the aged care standards and consumer-directed care. Assessment is just one aspect of care planning and case management. If you want to improve your skills in this area, perhaps you are looking to move into case management, or you're working in this area already as a coordinator or planner, but you want some additional insight into doing your job better, then consider registering your interest in one of our upcoming case management courses. You'll find a link in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video real soon.